BLove just won the grand finals on the EU server and defeated the 3-time cup holder APA on the very last games on a super exciting close match here. So today we're going to just take a look at how they actually managed to win this, and we're just going to get a bit nerdy here and analyze these games a little bit more in detail for you. Okay, for those who don't know me, just about me real quick. I've not really had a tremendous amount of tournament experience firsthand, as I decided to stream quite early on, but I've had the pleasure or honor to play with a couple of former champions and different teams that I participated in. And also before this session here, I was just analyzing the whole thing already together with Cora, who won on the NA server, and thereby I just found a lot of new stuff here that I want to point out, which I was not able to see on the grand final stream immediately, because it sometimes takes a while to really figure out how the game was decided. And by that, I want to just jump into it straight away with the first match already. Alright, the first game here was on Winter Malinovka, and we could see API playing a passive C strategy here, with the BLove team setting up for a quick I-cap. They went into base A straight away, and you can see that most of the guys here in the back on side of BLove actually just went further into the corner. They were supporting here, and they were all set up for some crossfire, just to keep in mind. In case that APA was also going for A, they could have shot into this from different angles. That was their purpose here, while the remaining tanks over there were still able to decap base B. And APA, on the other hand, they were rather being a little bit more careful here in the back and just setting themselves up in a way that they could easily rotate to any side as soon as they had some information. This is kind of typical for APA to not really go too aggressive from the start on, because they don't want to overexpose, don't want to give away weak spots to the enemies, just in case that everyone was on the same side. Just think of it on this side here. If APA was going all for A, then maybe it would have already been very tricky for BLove, because they had 4 tanks here kind of isolated on the A side. And if there were 7 tanks pushing at them, they might have died early on. Yeah, that is kind of unlikely, so BLove decided on a brave move, a brave tactic to go for the quick cap advantage to make use of later on still, which API would have probably not done. So that was already the first move here on BLove's side. The other tanks over here are still all just overlooking base B. They make sure that no one is taking that cap, because it could just lead to some unfortunate position. But now also API took back base C here, allowing them to not be too far behind on the caps. Kind of important for them, because yeah, it's still quite easy to turn around caps just by taking one base or the other. And that's really just what API is counting on, rather going for the kills instead of going for early caps here. And we can already see a relocation on the map here by BLove. They are pushing back to their own spawn, just attempting to go for the C play, because they know that APA will eventually take A back, or they have to do something. APA cannot just sit it out, as they are having the cap deficit. APA will therefore have to either get into base B or take base A, or in the best case even do both at the same time, which we are seeing very often at the top level, this kind of different kind of strategies at the same time here. But so far nothing's really happening. API is being very careful about this, which is also not the most common thing to do, because especially on the top level, teams are relocating quite a lot. They're not standing still for all too long. But now it is Elmery dropping into the B cap here, and we can see BLove setting themselves up to defend that. We can see that Kranwagen over there, which is attempting some decapping shots, but not being all too successful. He's trading poorly, not being able to decap reliably. Also those tanks over there, they're trying to shoot into this area of B, do not have shots onto Elmery on the right side here. So that is a very easy cap for APA. And also Elmery manages to get out of there pretty much unharmed, which is just a really good start here for APA. Now they have the double caps, and BLove has to push in, and we can also see here on the left side one Streetswagen. Let's just get back real quick. Look at that Streetswagen there. Just have an eye on him. He is getting tracked there in the open, loses half the hit points. Really not good for BLove as they're pushing on to C. and it would have potentially already allowed for API to counter push C straight away because they get a huge hit point advantage. Just look at this here. They are having a lot more hit points on the field already, couple of tanks low on HP, so API already on a good advantage now. But I would have to do something, and so far API is still set up very passively here. They're all standing in the back and not really doing all too much, and that is already a bit of an issue for them, because they would theoretically have the chance of pushing back onto C from over here. They would also have another chance of going back for B over there, where Psychopath Evgeny is currently on the B cap, and no one is decapping that base, which turns out to be a big problem for IPA, and I think they missed the opportunity here to immediately go for base B. Also, we can see one tank on the minimap being on the other side, and if we are paying attention to what that tank is, it is the VK90. The VK90 is kind of a super heavy tank that has a lot of hit points, does have a lot of armor, but it's not the fastest tank. So I think this is kind of a mistake here by the VK90 to go down towards the medium side. Of course, they maybe had in mind to just push out the one-to-one being Kranwagen. He wanted to secure his teammate, which was on A. It would have been potentially a nice option here, but I think more important was for the VK90 to actually be somewhere around there in the back, beneath or between the houses, to still have some decapping shots onto B. So also Elmery could then shoot B. Also some Streetswagens could maybe push over to the C cap or to the A cap, sorry, and also push onto the VK90. The VK90 should have definitely not been allowed to get away with this kind of move completely unharmed. And we can see in a second, the cap is being taken by B, has been taken by C, has been taken by B Love, and only now Elmery is pushing forwards. He's not shooting that VK90 though, because it is Assad, a very well armored heavy tank with a lot of hit points. He is shooting the Kranwagen instead on the other side, which is also going down, which is a good thing for APA. Yet they are still losing the left flank here, because also Letu moves over towards the medium flank together with the Water. They are able to take out Kitsune. And now we can also see a bit of a problem here. The VK90 took a long time to move up there, was not all too effective so far. And Uni decides to stay back to try some shots onto that Streetswagen over there. Fluffs the shot though. Right now he does not connect the shot, which could have been nice, but now Uni actually has to just abandon this side. Wata is going to kill Kitsune, and just shooting those tanks 1v2, it is not really helping too much. While on the other side there is the main fight going on. All the focus fire is over here, where everything is going to be decided, especially Evgeny. He's still alive. The Kranwagen died. Yes, that's good for API. They're currently having a gun advantage. API also has a lot more hit points still on the field. But the problem is that they are needing a lot of time here. They still don't have any caps, because there are still so many people here on the C base defending that side. The Streetswagens were pushing in all on their own here onto C. They were not having any real advantage. The last AFK is already low on hit points, while the very heavy tanks here, the VK72, is out of the fight. He is meant to take shots and also just put his armor into the fight. That's what the super heavies are there for. Just as the AMX M4s, they're also kind of super heavies, not having the highest damage output, but a very good amount of hit points. Unlike the Streetswagens, which do have high damage output, but are quite vulnerable. So here it would have already been better for the AMX M4s to maybe go for the fight on C. The enemy Streetswagens would have just been a lot more vulnerable there. It would have not been that easy for them to kill the M4s. So maybe they would have run away, and in the best case then it would have been the Streetswagens here going for the VK90, so that kill could have been a lot quicker, and the others could just move in, defend C. API could have retaken base by B and C simultaneously. At this point already the VK90 is still on the other side, kind of out of the fight. And that also turns out to be an issue, because he's fighting some tanks where he does not really have much support and not the highest chances of getting the kills over there, because the 1-to-1 B is obviously just going to run away, as we can see on the minimap happening right there. And also just pay attention to the points. A B-Love currently still having 2 caps, 930 points already. They still have a lot less hit points on the field, but they do have a gun advantage already, because they were kind of doing better here with a push on C and also the push on A, surprisingly just splitting up their forces a lot and still getting away with it. Only now Yennefer is getting into that C cap, which is just being far too late, because even with the C cap, if they manage to take it without losing any guns, they would still lose on points because it is simply too late for API. So just for the conclusion here, it would have been better to put the heavy tanks more into the fight and to just go for the move onto base B a little bit earlier. API was hoping for someone to overpeak here earlier, and that was just not working out. They had the advantage and kind of wasted it here. So Belaf just won on the points at this point, 1k points for them. Alright, so much about game number 1. We're already moving over to the battle number 2 here, which is on Rockfield. API was going for some very brave strategy here, which we can see in a second. First of all, let's pause here real quick before the stuff is starting to happen here, because there's already something you have to understand for this point of the strategy. And sorry, that is API is going for some very interesting stuff here. But first of all, what is Belaf doing? Belaf has some rather slow lineup. They have some AMX M4s. Let's check it out here. AMX M4s, IS-7, Object 77, only 2 Streetwagens and a VK90 instead as well. On the other side, we're having tons of Streetwagens and only 1 M4. All of those tanks, except for the M4, do have great amount of DPM and mobility, already putting API at the advantage, unless if it is a slow-paced gameplay where Belaf can just sit it out and count on the armor benefit or advantage that they are having. So Belaf is going for the A-sided strategy, where also the IS-7 would be used quite often, or the Object 777, because it can just sit there, just out of sight here. It can get to the bunker here and cap base A pretty much unharmed. That is Belaf's strategy, to also have some tanks in the back still, so they can overlook base B. If anyone was going for a quick cap of base B, then they could be punishing that just by shooting into that lane here, or the other one on the other side. That would work out for them potentially. And it also seems to be the case that API is going for it. They are moving in here. The STRVs are already putting in 1 shot, only just connecting 1. API just going for some very brave strategy of pushing through the middle, barely ever reduce that kind of aggression, because it is a huge risk. But what is the current situation here? API has 1 isolated tank over there, which should be the AMX M4, just to hold up the enemies and distract them a little bit. Belaf does not have much information. They were not fielding any mediums or light tanks, which often would spot over here or on the other side there. We can see 2 tanks from API being completely on the other side, but you might think, all right, they're out of the fight. It should be easy for Belaf to push forwards. But there is the issue. Then Belaf is playing a very slow lineup, and they are still very passive here because their strategy was not focused on going all for A. API on the other side, they are pushing for this tank on A here. That is their focused target. They are having exactly this counter in mind from the very start on. They want to get up here, shoot this guy. If he backs off from A, yeah, you can see on the minimap there is still the other M4 over there. He can shoot in from this side as well. Just putting this guy into horrible crossfire, he would probably not survive this. It is not really happening that way. But by the way, just if Belaf was to push forwards here onto these STRVs, which we are going to see, then we're having on the other side those Streetwagens over there, which are then going to support. They can shoot into this area, and also the M4 can shoot into this area as well. So Belaf would put themselves into bad crossfire. But that is not happening. Belaf does currently not have much information. They're just seeing these tanks here and are thinking, oh, great, we can kill them easily. Let's send over our Streetwagens into the back and shoot them from behind, while also pushing in from the front here to have these enemies in bad crossfire like this. But they are not being aware of the STRVs over there, because they were just unspotted until now. And they can now easily push in here, just as those STRVs can also shoot down onto the STRVs. So it is a very easy kill here. Those guys are just being overcommitted already and are going down very, very soon here. Very aggressive start by APA, and now it is basically already won for APA. They are going to get this gun advantage. BLAF is still not really in a fight. They're having a lot less hit points already, and they're having lower damage output with a less DPM of their tank choices and not having the mobility to counter push immediately. They're going in here. As we can see with the IS-7, also Letu is trying to move in, but they're all low on hit points already, and all these STRVs are super OP in the current meta. Having that mobility, having the amount of hit points as well, having that DPM, they are quickly deleting one tank after another. And that is already the win here for APA at this point, because they're having 3 tanks more, or 2 tanks more actually. And the rest is just farming down the remaining tanks. BLAF is going for a very desperate counter push here, and APA was just, yeah, farming them down. That's the rest of the story here. BLAF just overcommitted in the back here with the STRVs. That was the main issue, without having the information. And that is just something to keep in mind, that the information has always to be collected even at the top level. It does happen occasionally that you are trying to just play with what the enemies are giving you without exactly knowing what is going to happen. Because there's always some mind games involved, always some kind of predictions that lead you to do certain moves. Also, just to point out what APA's threat's biggest deficit was here, they had some kind of disadvantage in case that BLAF was actually not going for the A side, but rather playing for the C side and also just the corner here over there. So they would have the Streetwagens over here in bad crossfire. APA might have already lost a ton of hit points early on. It was not happening. APA got away with it. As we could see in the recent past, the A side here is very commonly used in the tournament meta, just because it allows for taking that A cap quite easily without really having to suffer all too much. So that is a big benefit, just leading many teams to go for the A side. The C side, on the other hand, if you're pushing into that C cap, it always is connected to a much bigger risk because you're isolating one tank over there. It's also seen quite often, or sometimes we're seeing people just playing for A and some tanks passively on the C side, and then attempting a move to go for C maybe. But yeah, APA was just counting on this kind of A-sided strategy, probably also because of the lineup that BLAF chose to play here. Moving on to the Molendyke game here, which was just also kind of interesting. There were some very mirrored strategies. If you're paying attention to the minimap here, both teams are sending pretty much everything towards base C. One light tank on API's side overlooking base A and B, one medium tank being over there. The light tank is at a disadvantage if it comes to the 1v1 against the 1-1B, because the 1-1B does have reactive armor and the speed boost, increasing the hit points, and also just being barely slower than the light tank at all. So the light tank has to be very careful about this. Could have potentially still spotted a bit more aggressively, but is certainly afraid of doing any mistakes early on. But it is mostly about this side over here then. We can see both teams moving into the corner quite aggressively, both being here with 3 tanks or even 4 tanks over here behind the house. This does also just cause a bit of an issue, because it means that these SCRVs cannot escape unharmed anymore. Same goes for those guys over here. They are kind of trapped here. So if anyone was pushing for that, then it would have probably led to a win of this match. Yet it was not going to happen really. APA was kind of just going for it. As you can see in a couple of seconds, they are going to make some kind of move, but they are hesitating a lot. And hesitation often leads to some loss of hit points and gets you into some bad situation, because it is just, yeah, if you're once committed to it, like Object 3 is over peaking here, taking a lot of shots already, which should have definitely not happened. He's down to 1k hit points already. That's 4 shots roundabout of any tank here. It would have been better if actually the STRVs were just being a lot more careful about this. pushing in with the M4s first could have been a game-winning move here, in my opinion. We could have seen the M4s just pushing forwards through the middle, maybe holding here for the moment just to have some crossfire into these STRVs, because they would really struggle to all hide back there. Maybe the M4s could have even pushed forwards and taken a lot of shots, because the M4s do have a lot of hit points and they could have absorbed all the damage dealt by the STRVs. And then the others could have moved up from over here and pushed out these tanks over there. Just to point it out real quick again, some tanks pushing over here, the others pushing over there, and these guys would have definitely died. Yet API lost so many hit points here with Object 3 already early on. They are already, well, they're still having more hit points, but they're still having to go for the push, and then it's not going to be too healthy, especially the part of the thing here that especially the issue here is that Object 3 lost a lot of hit points, while there was a lot more of a damage spread on the side of Blitz here. Also, something that is very important here for the win of Blitz is that they are pushing forwards over there in the middle area. They are getting quite aggressive. The 1-to-1B is already very close to the fight, already approaching it, while on the other side we are just having the light tank. Let's turn off the controls here. The light tank being still out of the fight. Of course, the 1-to-1B is also out of the fight for the moment still, but he's already crossfiring a little bit onto the silver. Already can put in some shots. Kitsune, on the other hand, on the light tank is just in a very tricky situation. The light tank cannot 1v1 the 1-to-1B in the middle. He cannot move up there anymore. He can just not sit in the back anymore, because that is just absolutely useless. It is not allowing his teammates to do much. So I think in the best case he would have maybe just pushed forwards over here, helped his teammates on the push. Although the light tank would have definitely been the focused target by Blitz, and it could have ended horribly if there was any kind of little misplay by the light tank on this side again. So it was a very tricky situation. I have to absolutely admit that, and just, yeah, seeing it from above, it's always a bit easier to judge. Yet the main push was going on over here, and sitting in the back just meant that there was one tank out of the fight, while Blitz was already engaging with pretty much everyone here in the middle. They are about to push onto Yennefer. As you can see, in a couple of seconds they're going for the move here, going to push onto Yennefer there. He is in focus fire, also pushing in over here. Now, API is pushing in on the C side, but it's just a bit too late. They're not really having a huge gun advantage and just losing the tanks already. And that is already it with the hit point advantage that API had from the start on. And now it is just being the case that Blitz is all the way around API, which also means that API cannot really hide here. Just look at this. Those guys can all shoot into there, so API has very little room to hide. Crossfiring is just mostly winning the game, and that is not only the truth for the start of the battle, but also has to be kept in mind then for the later stages. Also, the light tank and then attempted some kind of desperate play to go for the back of the enemies, try to put out some shots still, but just seeing the amount of tanks on the field, you can already see that this game is decided already for Blitz, and that is win number 2 for them. Let's move on to the next game here. Next battle was also very interesting. It was Mayan Ruins, and the 1-to-1B was just spotting here beneath the bridge on API's side. He was just being there for some spots and could potentially drop into base C if needed. He is relocating out of there though, because he is seeing something to the front and can escape safely. Blitz going for some kind of similar strategy to what API did on Rockfield here, sending these STRVs through the middle basically, although it's just not exactly the same, but they were attempting to go for some push onto base C. And now they have the cap advantage on C, yet API is free to take base A and B. I think API has pretty much all the time played for A, B here, from what I've seen, because it is just easier to get into B from the A side, as you can cover base A. Let's just move back a little bit. You can cover base B here in the middle from the bushes over there, where you can see these tanks, and also Yennefer was there just to have shots, actually not into B, but anyone who was maybe over-peeking here to decap. That was the focus, just as those guys could shoot over there then, or even on the left side. There's also another little plateau and bush. So that was API's strategy of just cross-firing like this, saving the B-cap, saving the Kitsune in the middle. But Yennefer gets punished a lot for this move, as he overpeaked there. Blitz was not even attempting to shoot into base B. They were just all waiting for Yennefer already. It was also kind of lucky to get those shots all in there. So now we got API on the high ground on the A-B double cap, being in pretty comfortable positions. They already lost some hit points, but the hit point deficit is not too huge. Only Yennefer is just fairly low on HP already. He does not have the option of doing much anymore. Blitz is currently all set up in the middle area. They're having some game plan already, though we can see some movement in the back there. They are pushing back to the spawn, attempting to maybe go for some A cap or just some A push there, because of course they are not having base C anymore, and they will need some cap again in order to win this game, because 2 caps against 1 are just increasing the advantage quite quickly. So they are relocating, yet also having in mind, hey, what is going to happen if API is actually going for the C push here, because that is also quite a common strategy to just not even defend the cap here, because you don't really know what is going to come at you, and just stopping a cap can be done even when taking damage. So API is relocating to just counter base C and trying to take base C while maybe holding base B or killing the middle area. That is API's game plan for now. But Blitz already adjusting to that, just setting up some STRVs in the back there, but still sending in some tanks over here. So maybe their plan is to just go in from the middle or so. Actually, A is even being tagged here, so they want to go for A. They will also want to go for B still. But we are at this point already seeing some big issue here. I think this is the moment, according to my notes, when Blitz was losing the game, in my opinion, because they're already down on caps quite a lot, and they are pushing away from the caps here. Object 3 and last AFK moving towards base C, but last is not spotted for the moment. Last can easily push up here. Currently there's only object being spotted. Blitz pushed down here, and I think that was a bit of a mistake by Blitz. Can we just play from here again just to see exactly what's happening here? In my opinion, what should have happened here was that Blitz actually set up themselves on the bridge here, because they could spot down into the area over there. They could see any relocations, they could still hold base C quite nicely, and they could also move up again if needed, because currently they are pushing very far away from the caps. And that means that APA can still hold base A. They're still having some tanks there. Very important for them. They're still holding the cap, still spotting this area. The mediums can outspot anyone approaching them. They're also still having Yennefer to cover base B, who can still decap there. And they're still having the advantage in the middle area. The only disadvantage is on the C side, which Blitz is going to make use of. But by pushing for object 3 and last AFK, which is currently unspotted still, but they are going to get some kills only, yet API is having the advantage on the other side, still holding the caps comfortably, not losing too much of an advantage. Also, they are able to do something in the middle still here, and can just fall back where they can cover each other with those guys being there. Uni still having backup from behind by Yennefer and also the medium over there. What should have probably happened here was that Blitz should have avoided object 3 at this point and rather try to kill Uni in the middle here, although it is an AMX M4, which is just healthier and harder to kill. But they could have potentially gone for Uni, retaken base B, and also made a move for base A. If we are just looking at the minimap once more, we are still seeing some tanks being there. So Blitz is being very splitted on what they are trying to do. They're pushing in over here, and those guys are still camping, and that is part of the reason why Blitz lost, in my opinion. Those guys needed to do something. There is not too much information yet, but the points are getting closer and closer to the 1k for APA. So Blitz should have maybe just done something like this, just sent in those tanks over here. So they could cover base B then from over there. They could just send one of those tanks into base B. The others could have then fought for the middle, so they gained the advantage of base B. They would have lost base C, that's for sure, but they could have gotten some kill over there. They could have taken the base, and they could have then sent in some tank towards base A as well, as they would have gained the high ground. They could have won all this side while losing the C side, and it would have probably been fine. Although, of course, that is something very tricky to see here and much easier to see from above. But these tanks down here on that C side were just being kind of isolated. Classical against Object 3. It's a 1v1 that is not really having any advantage to any side here and not really gaining all too much, while the main fight is rather over here and just being about the points. As we can then see, if we are moving forwards, Blitz is doing a great push. They are just pushing out those tanks, but the further they are pushing forwards, the further they are also moving away from the cap points on the other side here, while API is sitting on the caps quite comfortably. Caps are still racking up 900 points at this point already. They're still going to get some kills as well, and API also wants to move up here a little bit with their tanks there in order to get some kills and make sure they are still getting some kind of points just by killing some tanks here with Armory and Da Silva taking this kill. It's a 1k points for API, and they had a lot less hit points on the field, still managed to win the game just because of doing some better cap management. Next match was on Yukon, and Yukon did also have some very mirrored strategy. Both teams moving towards base D here with everyone. Yet there was some very small little issue on side of Blitz that Cora pointed out here, and it was being already happening right here. Already at this point we can see API having the advantage compared to Blitz, and that is not about the B cap. That is not really important at all for the time being. I want to just point out actually two things. First of all, there is a VK72 on the lineup here on Blitz side, which is just very slow for moving to D. I'm not entirely sure why they chose this tank to go for a D-sided strategy. Maybe they were hoping for that one to be able to get into some cap later on, but it is just being out of the fight. But it's only one part of the issue here. It still was kind of effective. It still got close later on. But another issue here is Skilloid and the other AMX M4 moving down into the ditch, giving up the high ground, while they could have placed themselves in the bush over here. And this bush would have allowed them to shoot down this angle here. That is exactly what API is doing on the other side. If we are paying attention to these M4s, they are already in position to shoot like this, while the others are also able to shoot over there, gaining API a quick advantage from the start on. Skilloid fluffing the shot onto Kitsune as well, but Kitsune is not really too important. He's still covered by the M4s from behind, while we can already see just past here Water just getting double tagged by the M4 with the tungsten shells, and also Kitsune put in a shot. And this already means that API has an advantage in the corner. They could potentially already push forwards here onto the STRVs. It is surprisingly not happening because they're seeing the AMX M4s pushing in from behind. So API is thinking about, oh wait, we can just actually put in our shots over there, just crossfire these M4s from two different angles without even having to overexpose at all, without giving up much of an advantage here, because those guys are just being that aggressive. Yet we've got to keep in mind that the M4s are meant to take shots here. They are in bad positions, yes, but they are just there for that, trying to allow their teammates in the corner to win this side here. They are taking the high ground and can then shoot down into this area, and they can also shoot down onto those guys as they are being pushed down. So BLAF's strategy on the other side is just pushing forwards with the M4s here right there. They want to shoot down into the STRVs while also pushing up with 3 tanks over here. They want to pincer those guys from 2 different angles and make sure they are not surviving here. That is the main plan, because if you're gaining the advantage of this corner, you can shoot down comfortably onto everything and you're being pretty safe here. This is often winning the battle already. What was surprising me here was that API actually did not push forwards and try to kill the STRVs first. They were just being so tempted by shooting those M4s in the back here, which did not matter too much, to be honest. So they put in some shots here, but they could have already cleared the corner. Yet the M4s still pushing forwards into the crossfire were just kind of losing the game here for BLAF, because they got focused. Also over here we've got some issues about to happen, which was absolutely crucial. So focused is Kitsune and Object 3. Focus fire not being on point on both sides thus far, to be honest. But Object 3 now getting shot down significantly. And Letu is going to make some big misplay. Just pay close attention to what he's doing. He's actually stopping there and retreating, which allows Elmery to move forwards and shield Object 3, while it could have just ended in a very different way if Letu was now about to push forwards, Object 3 being a 2-shot already. So Letu could have pushed forwards here, killed Object 3, or just put in 1 shot into Object 3 and blocked him in place. So one of the M4s could have also shot Object for 1 last shot. Evgeny over here could then already have turned for Kitsune, and together with Vata they could have killed him, then just leaving Elmery full HP left alive. But Letu backed off here. So there are still 2-3 tanks busy with killing this one STRV here, while Kitsune is allowed to push forwards and will win this 1v1 without any doubt. Here is going to take out another gun. Letu also about to die now to Elmery. That was just inevitably going to happen. The M4s in the middle also get deleted at this point. They did obviously not survive being crossfired that much, and API gained the control of the corner, and also they gained the high ground over here. Just checking real quick again, they can now crossfire into the ditch here from these angles like that, and that is what I mean. High ground is just always winning the game, crossfire is winning the game, and the guys from BLAF are very, they are just very exposed in the middle of the map here. That is a big issue for them, meaning that API has a huge advantage. Yet it is still surprisingly close, but API is going to get a very comfortable win here on this match now. That's basically already it. Also the VK72 just struggling a lot here to put out his shots with a poor mobility, and just being pushed out by last AFK into the other tanks which are still farming from behind. And that's already it here. That's the VK72 going down, only leaving 1 tank with 380 hit points left alive against 4 tanks which are all low on hit points, but it's just too much for anyone to handle. Even the best players in the world will not win against that many tanks, especially if those are all great players then, like API's players certainly are. Moving on to the very next match here. API was playing some interesting strategy of going for the A side with only 1-1 to 1B. The others were all setting themselves up over here. We can see TVP moving up the hill together with a light tank. The others are all just spotting C carefully with the heavy tanks. This one guy is totally isolated. You might say, oh, that is maybe an issue for APA. It turns out to be an issue, to be honest. But there is a plan to that. And that is being that everyone from over here can now just approach base C, take base C. They can take the hills here, and they can shoot down anyone going for this 1-1B. So theoretically, it should cost BLAF a lot of hit points if anyone was going for it. Problem here being already, APA is reconsidering their choices and they are sending over last AFK into this corner here in order to cover base A, to decap base A, but there he gets spotted quite easily and also gets trapped there. But also Skilloid is being spotted already, so last AFK maybe has the idea of shooting Skilloid from the corner as well, which is going to work out actually. We can see last AFK being able to shoot, Skilloid losing some hit points there in a moment, Skilloid being in a position where he can defend base B, which is obviously quite important in a tournament match, not so much in a random games, but only then it is a great position. Skilloid lost some hit points here to last AFK, one of two shots connected. But Blitz is already going forwards, and the 1-to-1 B does not have the cover of the TVP anymore, which would have been quite important for him. There's currently only this 2-100 light tank and one STRV over there on the hill, which are certainly not too much, kind of rendering the strategy of APA useless. It is just not just being that effective as it should be, because this bait is not really leading to a lot of punishment of Blitz, although they are losing some hit points here. As you can see, that's actually half the hit points or even more of the STRV. He's dropping down into the river. Maybe something else that could have happened here was that the 1-to-1 B just stopped the STRV here, tried to block him in place. And if he had some more support, it could have led to this guy dying, while also someone else should have pushed in here and could have also lost some hit points. They would have still been very exposed for quite a while. And Elmery should have also died, of course, but it would have cost Blitz more than one tank. That would have been quite sure. Blitz showing a very exceptional push, you know. They're pushing forwards with a 1-to-1 B, so he was able to get in some crossfire as well. Those guys all moving forwards. The last AFK not having any shots from over there, while Elmery is definitely absolutely getting obliterated here, absolutely getting deleted. And Blitz is still in very good positions here. Last FK also now losing tons of hit points on a crossing. So far he only put out one shot, I believe, onto Skilloid, who is really not all too important for Blitz, although his position is very important for them because it still covers base B and holds up APA from just pushing beyond him. And it is very hard to dig him out there. The Silver, in the meantime, decided to move up here in order to crossfire. The others are also now moving up towards base B over here, where they are attempting to make a play for the AMX M4. But just I have to mention here, there is a Streetswagen over there already who managed to climb up into this very, very strong position. He is able to shoot down anyone moving in here. Uni is now trapped on B. He cannot really move back without getting shot, although he might not necessarily have to take some shots, but currently he's fine. He's just thinking, okay guys, we have to do something, we have to kill Skilloid here. But there's also Letu just building up some crossfire, and just look at this. Skilloid is in a good position. He's being covered by the buildings here. It is very hard for APA to push beyond him because they will get farmed down and they have to do something. So Blitz can just support from so many different angles. They're having shots like this, they're having shots like this. They can also have shots like this and probably also like that as well. While they could also just move up from over there. Okay, it's getting a little bit busy here now, but you get the point hopefully. The crossfire and ways of supporting each other are absolutely crucial here. In the very last second, Skilloid is actually dropping down into the river, as we can see here, I believe. Yeah, he's dropping down. Uni gets punished a lot, is down to 12 hit points now. He's still going to survive for quite a while, but the AMX M4 is currently being safe again. On to the next play here on this side. There is currently, we are having 3 heavy tanks, 3 Streetswagens pushing onto the STRV here, played by Da Silva, who is being covered by the light tank and the TVP. Similar to the other side, APA is also supporting their tank in the front with a lot of guns from behind, so anyone overpeaking here is going to get punished. There is only one issue here with that kind of stuff. If you are being that aggressive as those guys are, they can share their hit points. They decide who they are going to send in first. so that the others are just, all the low hit point tanks can then fall back. Classical is moving into the front of LaRouche. The LaRouche, I think his name is, I'm not entirely sure, sorry if that's wrong, but he's low on hit points and he's being tracked there in position as well. The TVP is out of shots now, and Classical is shielding quite nicely. Evgeny is pushing beyond here, which is also a masterclass of pushing forwards here. Currently we're having two tanks over here shooting into Da Silva. He is still trying to angle a little bit and hide behind the hill here. So Evgeny is just pushing forwards, getting behind him so he can use his maximum DPM to shoot down Da Silva. Kitsune and Last AFK currently cannot do all too much anymore. They are still trying to farm here, trying to put out some shots, but they cannot shoot only one tank. They cannot focus fire quite well as they are that far away. So they have to split up their damage and shooting just one tank or the other, meaning that BLAV will just keep everyone left alive here in this push. And also Kitsune and Last AFK definitely have to run away at this point. They are low on hit points, and we can just see what is going to happen here on the other side, where we're also seeing some huge mistake on API side. Really tricky situation. I mean, it would have been quite nice if Object was just moving up the hill here, killing this guy. I'm not sure how to pronounce the Russian name, I'm sorry. Yennefer would have remained alive. Also there's water supporting the STRV, but it is currently being 2v1 here, while Yennefer is just, yeah, it should be fine for API. If he's just shooting down the STRV and dropping down, he would be safe. But what is happening here is that Object is struggling to move up the hill. Yeah, it can happen. It can happen, of course, but it is a big problem for the outcome of the game. Although API is already down in hit points, they're still having the cap. They are down 2 tanks, but they are about to lose another one. If Object 3 managed to climb up here, the STRV would be dead by now. Yennefer could have potentially just hidden somewhere here or dropped down and survived, so Vata could not go for the kill, but that is not happening. The STRV is actually killing him still, and that means that Object is still in a bad position. Object is alone now against the STRV on the hill. Object in the middle here, this STRV in a strong position, covered by the 1-to-1B from over there. It could have been a very different scenario here if Object managed to climb up onto the hill, managed to get the kill. We can also simultaneously see another issue. Let's get back a little bit. Pay attention to the light tank. What he is doing over there. He is actually pushing away from the STRVs, which is a great call. Obviously, that is exactly what he needs to do. But his options right now would be to maybe go up over there to kill this guy, maybe to go for this guy, or just run away here to get back to Object 3, because he is just quite healthy still, and would be great if there was the option of just playing together with everyone again, just moving up like this. On the way there was still Skilloy who could get killed, and they could maybe take base A while losing base C to those approaching STRVs, and they definitely still had a chance. On B, the fight is also lost because that's only Uni who is left alive on 12 hit points for quite a long time already. As Kitsune is running away and doing some little mistake here of running into those double STRVs which are still alive over there. So how could he avoid it? How could he have avoided this? And there was some kind of tricky or kind of nice option there actually, and that would have been just running like this. You can climb up the hill here, and he could have crossfired Letu, who was currently still pushing onto Uni. So in a 2v1 situation, or even 1v1 of Kitsune against Letu, it would have been possible to kill this guy. Uni would have still been alive over there. There should still be, who was it, Yennefer I believe, should have still survived as well. If Object was also surviving and being able to kill that STRV over there, which is still alive at the moment. Water then had to run away as he was low on hit points, would have probably come in from over here. So Kitsune would have to be very careful over there, but potentially it would have been possible for Kitsune to kill the STRV or just shoot him down a little bit and keep running away and just make the A play on the other side. Skilloid is actually about to get killed by last AFK, also that would have been another option for Kitsune to go for if he was just moving up over there, going for Skilloid, just shooting him once, going past him. He would have taken one shot from the M4 and maybe also from the STRV, but he should have been able to survive this actually like this. He's just running into everything. You can see the hit points dropping significantly here. He's not surviving at all there, while last AFK is actually still able to take out the M4, takes a big shot in return, is down to a one shot, but just having some mobile tank like this left alive in the very end could be very nice here for API. And this guy still being alive here in this fight, Object being crossfire now by STRV and Vata on the other side, just turning out to be a huge issue. If Object was there, then it would have definitely been not been possible for the 1-1B to keep fighting from this position. And yeah, Object is now left alive alone while everyone else died. Leto being too shot. This guy should have been dead. Then yeah, Leto could have been dead as well, and the other TVP and LT could have maybe moved up here. It could have still been a 3v4 situation actually, if they all managed to run away here. And they could have still taken A. The other Streetwagens would have had to go for base C. They could have also taken base B, but there was not much mobility on the field for BLAV anymore, apart from this low HP 1-1B. And if the LT on side of APA survived on some more hit points, it would have still been very much possible here. So the remaining part here is just Object running away and getting shot down. Still getting that kill shot, really nice shot there, but it does not matter at this point at all. Let's move on to the next match here, where we can see BLAV moving up to base C, API going for base A and B. That's also something to keep in mind here. BLAV is attempting to apply for the C cap with a 1-1B, who's currently spotting here. He's moving up onto the hill, just showing the gun mantlet, which, in case you didn't know, the gun mantlet is spotting and the highest point of the tank, so the roof basically. So he is just trying to spot here, not seeing anything though, so he doesn't know, okay, the enemies are not moving up into the desert here with all their tanks. The 1-1B should be fine to take base C like this, just judging by the information that BLAV currently has. But of course they don't know about Object 3 being there still to spot and just put out his clipping potential into the base C. The 1-1B is actually going for the base here. Meanwhile, API is approaching base A and B. They're having some very heavy tanks over there in order to overlook base B, and they can just easily push forwards over there, but they're also not having too much information. Currently there are 2 tanks being spotted here. Object 3 now moving out. Object can shoot into this area. There's a hill covering the right area, so Vata is trying to hide there. Yet also Vata is getting spotted as Object is moving up a little bit. Vata is just trying to be safe, but there is some very nice cupola shot or shot into the roof here from over there by Yennefer against some really nice crossfire. Vata loses a lot of hit points early on already. The C cap is being denied. API is able to get into base A. Early advantage for APA, which is very good for them. They're also having far more hit points on the field right now already, with 18k to 17,200. Okay, that's just about 3 shots, but still it is something, especially when you're having the cap advantage as well. So the positioning of APA being for the moment 1 Kranwagen in the back there, which still turns out to be a massive issue for APA. This Kranwagen is there to hold up the spawn and just secure the map control for APA and also potentially the C cap. Over here we've got BLAV just attempting to make some moves for some map control. They are spreading out a little bit on the minimap, you can see it. They do not necessarily want to do too much just yet. They just want to see if they can make use of the better side of the map that allows for some nice crossfire and maybe allowing them to get some damage in before they are going to make a play. Also, they want to, yeah, of course, collect some information about the positions of APA, but they are just hiding here behind the dunes and are being pretty safe for the time being. So that is just fine for APA. They're having some good advantage. Only now C is being kept. The VKs are going for a move into the river here. Their goal is to just absorb the damage. If there is anyone shooting them, they are going to spot them in return. They can put out some large shots, and also if they are moving up like this, they may be able to still shoot the Kranwagen if he's still there, as the Kranwagen is kind of isolated. Also, there are still some tanks over here who can then crossfire potentially. Both the VKs being spotted, perma spotting or proxy spotting Uni here, just because of the 50 meters that you are just needing to spot something even through obstacles. That's no issue then. VKs are moving up. An object is deciding to shoot the VK. Object actually decided to do something interesting here. He was baiting with a Kranwagen in some very weird position, if I'm honest, because he was down there where he could not see much. He was not spotting anything, so not collecting any information, deciding to shoot the VK-72, which is tempting to do, yet I think it is a bit of an issue here, because Object could have taken some better position still if he was about to move either back behind there, or even, I think my preferred position would have been if he moved through this canal like that, and he could have just used this bush. There's a little bit of bush. You can be hull down there. You are very far in the back, and you can just sit there, spot a little bit, and then these STRVs would have also been useful in order to shoot down this lane onto the approaching STRVs. As the VKs were moving up, it could have still been considered to actually move back like this, and just, yeah, not just exactly like this, but Object could have potentially moved over here in order to get in some shots. Something like that could have happened like this. As you can see, in a moment, Object does not see the STRVs. Only now the STRV is getting spotted. There was absolutely no information about that happening. And now they can absolutely annihilate Object. He is just going to die in very short time. While on the other side, APA is deciding to counter push the A area instead of supporting Object, which is probably the right call, because they want to just kill those tanks over there, which are a bit more exposed. Pushing into the river usually is a little bit of an issue, as you are giving up good positions there. Also, I definitely have to point out this position over here. It is Psychopath Evgeny who was moving up there. APA being all spotted on the move forwards, and Evgeny is also still moving forwards. He's just staying there, giving APA a free kill basically, while he could have still ran away. I would say he could have just used his speed boost that he was not using so far. He could have run away and moved back somewhere around there at least to still crossfire Uni. He did not have to be there, and it was kind of unnecessary for him to die actually. APA got a very easy kill by that. APA also manages to get base B at the same time, but they lost Object of course, so guns are even again. APA still has a lot more hit points and is not exactly getting base B, as B-Lab is already counter pushing quite nicely. Now APA has all the tanks here, able to re-push into the B area, cover this stuff here, cover Uni, and just go for some kills over there. That should definitely be the case. Yeah, APA is not really deciding to do so. Uni is getting farmed down. Armory pushing in from behind, that's fine. Jennifer and Da Silva are not really going for it. Last AFK and Kitsune are pushing back over here. They want to maybe kill those tanks, because there's also the 1-1B on the C side still crossfiring. So it is a bit of an issue to focus those tanks. If you're pushing in from behind here, there may be the high DPM 1-1B right behind, shooting a lot of shots into you. And the 1-to-1B is quite hard to get with the mobility that it has. So APA is just deciding to stay up on the high ground, still play for the caps, while Almery is still doing this move to go in from the side. Yennefer, though, Yennefer is moving away. So the play is being for the moment here. Alright, they're going down into the river where they are safe from the 1-to-1B and can crossfire over there. Then Almery loses a lot of hit points for that. The Silver is currently still busy shooting Skilloid. For the moment it is fine. There is still a hit point advantage on APA side. Guns being even cap points on APA side as well. And Skilloid is down to a one-shot now. But just look at this moment here. Skilloid got killed right when shooting Almery. 640 hit points. That could have still been game deciding for APA. They're still having the hit point advantage, but Almery is now being a one-shot. But there is where the issues are starting to begin here for APA. The main issue here I would see being in Yennefer just running around here trying to chase away the 1-to-1B, which is not all too horrible, but the 1-to-1B is going to run away. So Yennefer could have maybe focused onto Letu together with Da Silva and also Almery, because all of those guys could have shot down Letu with some very nice crossfire. He could not have escaped from that position anymore. But just paying attention to what Da Silva is doing while the STRVs are killing Almery over there, Da Silva is actually shooting the full HP tank Classical here, who is also set on fire. Nice damage, but it does not matter. Letu is still allowed to run away, still low on hit points, being able to escape from the dangerous zone here, while Da Silva is now pushing into B, still attempting a play for the cap. Yennefer also going for C, so they are just counting on taking back base C and B while they are about to lose base A, and they want to just win on the points. But Belove has something else in mind. Belove is just thinking about going for kills instead. And now they can also push out last AFK here, which is just getting them another free kill, while they're also having two tanks over there on C, which is the 1-to-1B, and Letu, who is low on hit points still, and about to 2v1 Yennefer there and going to get the kill shot in. Da Silva capping the base, not helping his teammates for the moment. Now critting the base cap and still going for the fight, but it is just too late. All of the guys on API side just died here, apart from Da Silva. Last AFK is about to die. API just not finding the focus fire and splitting up their forces too much, going for some very weird stuff of ignoring the low HP tank in the middle here and going for bases instead, which was not really being too beneficial for them. So that leaves us with only just 1-2 last games, I believe. And the next one is Fort Despair. Fort Despair was interesting. I think, yeah, it was the second to last match. Yeah, we can see now APA 3 points, Belove 4 points. I can already tell you APA is going to win this in some very weird way, as they are down 3 tanks for a moment. Let's show you what is happening. They are down on tanks, but they can still win this game. Let's just quickly explain the strategy here. Belove is focusing on the B cap. Yeah, the name says it all. They want to go for the B. They are going for the middle area here with some strong hull down tanks that are having a lot of damage to put out on the big guns, but they are not having great mobility, nor do they have great DPM, which turns out to be a bit of a disadvantage later on. Those tanks are taking the hill here, while Classical is basically free to push into base B. If those two VKs would be pushing out, then there would be the AMX and the double 60 TPs all shooting into the VKs, so that is not going to happen. On the other side, we've got the TVP, who moved into the corner just in order to put out some crossfire. If there was anyone on API side moving into the corner, the TVP could have put out some clip and ran away afterwards. Although that is not happening, the light tank just spotted the TVP and someone shot the TVP as well. So the TVP currently being in the corner all on his own, while the others are going to go for the B play. Actually, it's 60TP here, losing 2 shots worth of hit points to LT and the Concept 1B still. Not too great, but now they can take the B cap quite comfortably as API is approaching base C. Very important here is that API is not going for the cap at all. They know that there is a lot of stuff on B, and they have also seen those tanks over here already. So they are immediately speed boosting forwards here, which is kind of a brave play, but also a very clever move to go for the kills instead of points already. And they are just not overpeaking because the VK has some big gun. They just want to shoot him first. And now look at what is going to happen here to the VK. He's about to lose a ton of hit points. 1.8k hit points lost for crossing over there. So that was really not too healthy for BLove. They lost a lot of hit points by that, down 2k hit points already. But they are having a good chance of pushing out those 2 tanks here. The API team has double STRV very isolated to the side. Again, I want to just mention how great API's crossfire is once more. They're having some isolated tanks, but everyone else is able to support them from the other side. And the others are all spotted over there, so API is not really at the greatest risk. But BLove can certainly go for a play here. Classical also pushing over. They're currently having 3 tanks on this side. Kitsune also going to support here. And BLove lost so many hit points that they would struggle to win this side. But I believe personally that it would have maybe been the best case for them to just try to kill the STRVs, because they are so close and so dangerous. They don't have as many hit points as the VKs, and also they are just having the DPM. So in the best case, BLove was working together here, but we can see 1 tank moving up all on his own, the others are falling back, and now they are actually going for the VKs, and they managed to kill them quite quickly. The 60TPs are all moving in to go for some different kind of crossfire. Jennifer, who was on a TD position over there, did some brave move of moving up all the way behind here. And if you are just paying attention to what he is going to do, you will be a little bit surprised, because he is going to get away completely unharmed. And it should be here, where the 60TP should have already turned for him. He was spotted there, and the 60TP, just as this guy, they should have killed the Concept as he was pushing over for the TVP. I can only imagine the TVP screaming for help on the voice chat. He is getting focused out now, is down on his clip. He does have the Streetswagen to the front and also the Concept 1B behind. He cannot really escape, is also in reverse to the Concept, so he has to turn around and is really struggling to run away. So there is a little bit of a miscommunication going on here. API is down 3 tanks. That is very important here, but the hit points are very close. And BLove has a lot of low damage output tanks on the field, and also they kind of messed up the focus. Let me just go back 1 second. Let's also pay attention to the LaRouche here, just fluffing the shot onto Kitsune as well. While the Concept is free to move over there for the TVP, the TVP is still trying to block that Concept in place. So if the 60TPs actually shot the Concept, then maybe the TVP could have clipped him there, and it could have been a kill, just leaving the TVP left alive as a 1-shot or so. It would have been enough in order to just secure the win, in my opinion. Because like this, the TVP is going to have to run away. The Concept is able to get into some safe position. BLove is having 3 tanks left alive in the middle here, all close together, not cross-firing at all. While there is some tank right behind here who is putting shots into the back of these 60TPs. There is the very healthy STRV to the front. Jennifer has some good DPM. Also there's Object 3 in a strong position, having some great DPM as well to crossfire. BLove absolutely running into the middle here, not really able to focus out tanks. They are going for Kitsune still. But look at the DPM disadvantage here. The 2100 light tank putting out 1 shot after another, still tracking that 60TP. Then also the STRVs here having great DPM, just as the Concept 1B, while the TVP and the 60TPs are all having low DPM, struggling to get the kills in here. And API winning this match despite having 3 tanks less on the field. So I think it was really up to just securing the kind of map control. It would have been tricky for Blitz to push forwards towards the seaside over here, but I think that was needed to kill some STRVs before proceeding to fight the VK-72s. It could have helped also if the TVP was able to relocate a bit sooner in order to get here, help with the fight. If maybe some heavy tank was, if we're just moving back a little bit, if some heavy tank was maybe not even there on B at all. If we are seeing the positions for the moment here, there are all the tanks in very aggressive spots over there where they are going to take some damage if they are relocating. So it could have maybe helped if there was someone just camping either here or on a 2D position just for the start in order to have the options of relocating right after collecting some information. So on to the tiebreaker of the grand finals here. This was where it all came down to one last win in order to win the final cup here. APA once more playing a passive strategy for just holding the caps and going for some push later on. That was their intention, while Blitz went for the B cap, of course, and just took the base here and just allowing them to have some early advantage on the points. APA, or actually Kitsune, is dropping down there. I'm surprised about that, to be honest, because it seems to be a mistake, as I remember what is going to happen later on. Then Kitsune dropping down, getting behind the wall here, where he can potentially decap base A. Yet he's peeking out, about to happen in a second, trying to just put in some crossfire there, but he's currently a huge weak spot for APA. If we're just seeing this here, APA has a strategy of just shooting A from different angles, which should definitely work to defend base A from over there. They don't even need Kitsune, but Kitsune is still there to have some additional angle from over there. If Blitz is going for that A cap, they are going to suffer a lot, but at the same time we are having Kitsune very, very isolated. If Blitz is going for the push, they are going to get the kill shot here, or the kill definitely, while they are not necessarily about to lose tanks, although they would lose a lot of hit points as they would get crossfire, that's for sure, but those tanks here are too far away to immediately counter push. So actually it should be possible for Blitz to get the kill without losing any tanks theoretically. Yet they still have a cap advantage, so they don't really go for it straight away, and they are waiting a little bit, going to see what's happening. Also worth mentioning the 1-1 B here in the back, who was just there to spot base C and is not doing all too much, but still playing a crucial role in the later stage of the game. Then, as he is able to secure some map control, does have a lot of DPM and mobility, which APA does not have, as they are not having any DPM tanks. They're having the Streetswagens, of course, but they are not having any mediums or light tanks on the field with the same kind of view range and camouflage. And Blitz is deciding to go for a move here. They're taking first shots here. Definitely Letu is taking the damage, but he can just fall back. And that's what I mean with APA being too far away to really focus out one tank. Letu took the damage, but he can fall back into safety. He is perfectly fine there, being covered by all his tanks, but Kitsune cannot run away anymore. Blitz can go forwards and can kill him there where he is being, and that should be quite possible for them. Blitz just blocking each other a little bit here, not all too perfect. They are struggling a long time to kill Kitsune. He was doing a phenomenal job at surviving here behind the wall. He is still covered from behind. And also Classical actually is the first one to get killed. I think he got perma-trucked in this position, goes down there as the first one of all of them, and is now just leading to a gun advantage of APA. Kitsune is certainly about to die, but APA is struggling for the time being because they are not really having any advantages. They're still having more hit points. They are not having any cap point advantage, although they managed to take base C, but it does not really matter too much. So for APA it would be very important to get some kills as they are about to lose Kitsune over there. What they are doing here is actually pushing over to the left side because it gains some high ground and also some cross-firing options onto those people over here. So theoretically it is a nice option in terms of map control and also cross-firing, securing each other and securing good positions. But eventually it is also meaning that API does not really gain any advantage as they cannot push in too effectively here. Currently BLAV is still in bad positions, but they can easily move up now. API therefore going for a hull down fight against Object 777s with STRVs that are having much less armor, which is a big problem here. And we can already see what API could have done instead, and that is this AMX M4. He is very isolated, being very exposed here. Uni is going for him actually, and it would have been very nice if there was one of the STRVs, I think there's even still Object 3 back there, he could have then pushed up, just gotten behind that M4 and pushed him out. After that there would have still been the option of just fighting for the corner here. They could just ignore the corner basically. Letu was also a low hit point tank. They could have pre-aimed from him the front while also sending in one tank into the ditch to get behind here. Just shoot down Letu, maybe even go for base B then. Just imagine it. Wait, okay. Never mind. We can just see it here again, where you could just potentially send in one STRV, there's Object to the side here. You could push in like that, shoot down the M4, then drop down, push up behind the STRV while the others are aiming for him from the front. So Letu was definitely about to die. He does not have many hit points, and the STRV could have then moved back into base B potentially to stop the cap, or even decided to just stay here, while BLAV would have then been all in this corner only. They would have been trapped here, would have had to push forwards like that, where they could get crossfired quite heavily from the AMX M4s over there still. That was definitely possible. Also Jennifer could still put in some shots like that, so BLAV would have had some very bad positions away from the bases, while API could have gained the advantage. Only one thing to consider still is that there is still a 1-to-1B far in the back who could have still caused some harm to the API team. But API is just having the issue of not deciding Object moving up here. They are all just trying to cover the corner, but they're having very little advantage. STRV's hull down against Objects are just not much ahead there. They're not having the armor to fight the Objects. And thereby Elmery is getting farmed out, getting focused out here. The 1-to-1 now being very effective from behind, moving in there without much fear. Can just YOLO in there. Does have the reactive armor as well, or just used it I think. Can just kill Jennifer now and can go for cleanup from right behind. API surprisingly still having more hit points, but they just did not find the tanks to focus out here. All about a focus fire in tournaments, taking out guns. Although there was surprisingly also some games where API won with less tanks on the field, but just the balance of cross-firing, map control, and also focusing out tanks that has always to be found. It's really not an easy thing to do, and therefore even the highest level teams are doing mistakes. And I just want to point it out here, by no means I would have played this any better. I can just count on my experience as an analyst here, and yeah, I'm thankful for being able to analyze from the third-person view here, where I can just see everything and have all the information at hand. It's a lot easier than being in the game, which I've experienced as well, but just not on that kind of level actually. So congratulations to all of them. Great games here. Really awesome stuff that we could see by both of these teams. Otherwise it would not have been a 4-5 in the very end. BLAV actually winning the grand finals here, winning $25,000. Also API got some decent prize pools still. And yeah, it was basically one of the best finals in a long time. I don't know, maybe even gets the top there. It was amazing to see. So thanks for watching everyone. Maybe see you on Twitch where I'm mostly streaming. Have a look at the description.